All right, guys, let's get started. Ooh, are we going to do a craft project?
I can't.
All right. Chris is downstairs introducing the new classes for the next session, so when he gets up here, he can tell you all about all of the new sessions. So I'm going to get started without him. So let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this opportunity again to come together and to dig into your word and learn about our families and how to best prepare our children to follow you. We thank you for being with us and caring for us and our children. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so last week, Daryl, we kind of flipped the lessons around so that Daryl could talk about something that was more applicable to him. He was really excited about getting to talk about that. So we're actually going to kind of go back and do the fourth, I forgot what they called it. They calls it a DMP, and I don't remember what DMP stands for, but whatever. There's four things we've been talking about. So this one is about measuring, reinforcing, and rejoicing in your fruits of your labor. So the first part is about measuring growth. So we've talked about all of these different things that you're doing with your kids and all of the, the 7 practices and all the things that we're trying to instill in your children. But it's also really important that you measure growth. We're not just randomly doing things and just hoping that it turns out okay. We do actually want to do some kind of measurement, which for me as a teacher makes me really happy because I love that kind of stuff. I love some good data. This is not going to be the same kind of data. You're not going to necessarily give your kid, a written test or anything, although you can. It's a lot of observation. It's a lot of conversations. But you also want to be teaching your kid how to self-evaluate themselves. Some people and adults are really not very good at this. Like, they can pick out something somebody is doing and see that's bad, and you're like, do you not see that you do that too? Like, a little self-evaluation would be good. That's actually a really difficult skill for kids to do. So actively teaching your kid how to do that. So teaching your kid how to reflect on their choices, their attitude, and their own growth. And just talking to them about, like, your goals. We talked about having goals for your kids. Now, when they're really little, maybe you don't tell them all of your goals, but certainly the older they get, the more involved you want them to be in that process. I did tell Jonathan one year, I think he was in maybe 3rd grade. When was Keegan your friend? Was that 3rd, 4th grade? First grade? Okay. So somewhere 1st, 2nd grade. Jonathan's he's an introvert. He had this friend, Keegan was his best friend, but he was like his only friend. I'm like, Jonathan, my goal for you this year is to make a friend. He's like, I already got a friend. Yeah.
To clarify, the friend was not invisible, correct?
He was not. He was real.
He went to our church for a while.
But I'm like, my goal is for you to make a friend. He's like, I got one. It's all good. I don't need another one. I'm like, maybe you need a backup friend. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's a good goal for you to be friendly and, So he was not necessarily 100% on board with that goal that year, but we did discuss it, and it did come into kind of conversations throughout the year of, this is why we're friendly. And what does the Bible talk about friendship and, helping people or being friendly and showing yourself friendly and why we need to do that. So it's definitely a good thing to let your kids in on it. It's not a secret. We're not trying to keep it from them. They can be helpful. They can also then reflect on choices they made. Well, if this is our goal, did that help us get to our goal? Did that help us get farther away from our goal? And just kind of having those kind of conversations with them will help them to start learning how to self-evaluate themselves. Attitudes and, how do you think you did on your goal this year? Let them start picking goals as they get older. They're capable of doing that as they get older, and your kid when what kind of things they come up with, and even I was going to say if they're good goals, but even if they're not a good goal, if that's their goal, and help them reach their goal and find ways to evaluate it. So set personal and spiritual goals together. So not just personal goals like make a friend, but spiritual goals as well. and help them kind of see what those kind of things look like. Focus on progress, not perfection. Nobody's perfect. You're not perfect. Your kids aren't perfect. They aren't going to necessarily hit everything that you want them to do, and they're going to fail. The point is growth. Jesus doesn't expect us to be perfect as soon as we are saved. That's not how it works. We live our life, and perfection is attained when we get to heaven. So some little kids feel the pressure of perfection, and they can't handle if this is the goal and I didn't make it, all is lost, and they don't know how to handle that. So some kids will need more more talking to about, but you've made progress. Look how far you've come. Look where we were a year ago or 2 years ago. And that progress in itself is an accomplishment.
With the goals.
Huh?
With the goals, it's probably
Yeah.
smart to make sure they're not obsessing over the goals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's all in.
Because that's not the point either. And that could go to just the kind of goals that you meet, or set. It could be if your goal is about having a better attitude and not talking back as much, or, well, then you're not going to be perfect at that. Are we better? Did we not roll our eyes at our mom every single time she spoke to us? That's a little more ambiguous than make a friend. He could have gone and said, okay, here's my friend, I made it, but he was a little more stubborn than that. All right, ask regularly what is working and what is not working. So kind of bringing them into this. And this is true for you as you're disciplining as well as for the kid and their goals. If it's not working, stop doing it. Some people parents and kids get really obsessed into well, I started this, I'm going to carry it out. If it's not working, there is no reason to keep doing it. Your kid is your kid for the rest of your life. You can't just keep doing it because you started it. We went through countless token systems, chore charts, sliding things. I can't even tell you how many different kinds of things, because I would come up with a brilliant idea and the kids would be all in. I'm like clothespins on a chart, everything you can imagine. And they would be all in and it was working great. And then, I don't know, they woke up one morning and are like, this is not fun anymore. I'm like, all right, throw it out. Let's try something else. If it's not working, then don't do it. And teaching your kid that is the same thing. If we're trying to get to a goal and what you're doing isn't working, then you're going to have to try something else. And that's not just with chore charts or things like that, but spiritually. Have you tried praying? That's not always what kids go to. I think I said that to my kids a lot. I'm trying to do this and it's not working. What did you ask God what he thought about it? Well, no. Okay, well, maybe we could try that. There are things that they just don't think of that we need to encourage them in that too. We need to have encouragement over judgment. And this kind of goes along with that perfection thing too. You want to partner with your kid in this. So this is not judgment well, sit down, it is now evaluation time, and let's see how you're doing. Oh, you're doing good at this, but terrible at this, and I'm going to pick on you or make fun of you or judge you for it. That's not the point. The point is for you to be a partner with them, for them to feel like they can come to you and you're going to support them in their goals and in their journey. So encouraging them in what they are doing well and how far they have come. And if they are not doing well in something, then they're more apt to listen to you. They're more open to hearing your suggestions if they feel like you're encouragement and you're their partner and not just judging them and criticizing them. So lots of grace and not criticism. Recognize efforts and heart change, not just outcomes. That's a hard one for kids to see too. When you look at your kid, I can see in your eyes what's going on. But that's really hard for them to recognize. So encouraging heart change is really important. And sometimes we get really busy and we see it, but we don't say anything. So I had to be very mindful about trying to say things when I would see things or mention it later. I noticed you did this, or hey, I really appreciated that you helped, your brother out whenever he fell down or whatever. Because they won't always notice that. Reinforce the idea that growth takes time. Just because we set a goal for this year, if we don't make it, then we can come up with a new goal, or we'll just add another one to it. Or I don't mean for this to happen like a checklist either. Like, it isn't like, here's the 5 things, check, 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 you got 3 out of 4 or whatever. Growth takes time. And I think sharing with them your goals too for your life. What are you doing? How have you grown and changed? That's important for them to see too, so that they understand that isn't just them and they're a child, and that at some point they're going to grow up and this is not going to be a thing anymore. That's not true. We're all still growing and still learning. It's a lifelong thing. Teaching them discernment. So teach your child to listen for the Holy Spirit. This is really hard. That's really hard for a lot of adults to do. Just a lot of encouragement. And like I said, saying to your kid, well, did you pray about that? Did you pray about that? I feel like there was a year there where I said that to Alex almost like every day. Well, did you pray about that? What does God say about that? What does the Bible say about that? Do you hear anything? What's God saying to you about that? Like, I just felt like I kept saying it over and over again. He kept just rolling his eyes at me. But we just keep saying it over and over again and keep sharing. Well, this is what happened in this situation, and this is what God said to me. But this idea of God speaking to you, like, that's kind of an interesting topic. I'm not even sure what the word is. Like, it's not concrete, right? Like, little kids don't even understand abstract things, and to understand that's hard. So when they're really little, and you like pray with them when they're little, they're probably more open to praying about something, but they don't necessarily expect to hear anything. But the older they get, we need to really encourage them to not just pray, but to hear. So you can use some tools to measure growth as they are age appropriate. You can do, like, there are worldview assessments, there are spiritual gift assessments, personality strengths, personality attributes, spiritual growth inventories. I'm sure you've all heard of all of these things. They're all over the internet. You can find things. I did say age appropriate because if you do them with kids when they're too little, they don't really work. We did I think we did a personality thing one time with our 3 kids, and I'm thinking, this is not going to work for Alex. He was too little, but he wanted to do it because the older kids were doing it, and it came out very weird for him because he was just putting what he was thinking he was supposed to put and not really understanding the question, or the question just wasn't worded for kids. Like, when you're at work, do you prefer to sit quietly and do your work, or prefer, he's like, I don't even understand what this means, But there are some basic things out there you can do. I probably could have told you what his personality was without a test. I knew him well enough to know, but he wanted to take the test. So as he got a little older, I'm like, okay, let's try again and let you take one. But personalities are interesting. If you've ever done a personality inventory, there's lots of them out there. They are not, there's no science in that. It is just interesting commonalities. Like, it's just kind of tendencies, so they're fun, and I think they're kind of fun, but it can help you to kind of understand your kid a little bit better, how they are seeing things and perceiving things, especially if they have a different personality than you. But don't rely too much on that, and certainly don't try and curse your kid by saying, well, we took this personality test and it said you're this way. No, God expects us to be the good part of all of the personalities. Well, we're not going to get there in this lifetime, but that's our goal. So we can't use it as either a crutch, or some people will just say, well, that's just the way I am. No, that's not what God says. We're supposed to be like Christ. If that's the way you are, then you need to work on it if it's not right. So if you're going to use those kind of things with your kids, then just kind of be careful with them. My kids did do a worldview assessment when they were in high school. One of their government teachers, was it you or Kayla? I think it was you, came home and they gave them the assessment, and we had the kids do it. It was really, really interesting. It was all political questions and stuff, but for us it was really enlightening because, let's just give you some of these kind of seemingly random political questions and see what they say. Because otherwise it's just, it had just been years of us talking about things. I wasn't always quite sure what was going on in their heads. So that one was really interesting. So the spiritual gifts assessment, that one, until they're in high school, that one's probably really difficult, because if you've ever taken one, it's a lot of questions about in the church, do you prefer to do this or this? And while you want to start helping your kid as they start getting to be 11, 12, we start letting kids start to do things in church, and helping them figure out, what are you gifted at? What do you like to do? And working in that way. You don't want them to to too early feel like, oh, I have the gift of mercy and I don't have the gift of this, and then that kind of pigeon their brain into thinking I can't do this thing, but I can't do this. So anyway, so do you have your mic? You ready? That's all my tools.
Okay. So remind me again, what is our goal in raising kids? The whole thing that we've been talking about. Raising what?
Spiritual champions.
Yes. So spiritual champions. So that's, you got to keep that goal in mind. That our end goal is that our children will have a strong relationship with Christ. So, how many of you have ever had a manager, a boss, a teacher chew your butt out, veins popping out of the head, anger seething out in every word? Has anybody ever had that happen to you before? Did that a long time ago? I mean, did that endear you to that manager? Did that make you think, man, I really want to do what that manager wanted me to do? Did that make me just love that manager more and want to be like that manager? No. Not at all. But the trap we fall into sometimes, we use that same tactic on our kids. That we yell, scream, veins popping out of our head at our kid, and then it's like, oh, why don't they want to hang around me? Why don't they want to talk to me? Well, it's because you turn into a little demon when you get mad, and nobody wants to hang around with that. So disciplining out of anger is never a good thing. Real quick at your tables, let's do about 3 minutes or so. Just real quick at your tables. Come up with a strategy that when you are about to lose it with a kid, what are some things that you have personally found effective to avoid losing it? Or those of you that don't have kids, play it with your spouse. Okay, if you don't have a spouse, with your friends. Hey, Alex, if you would like to come and sit with this table, I'm sure that they would love to have you. But let's say about 3 minutes. So about 3 minutes. Then let's start with you guys. What was one strategy you came up with for not murdering your children when they do something to make you mad? Oh, that's true. And then it's nice and quiet. And it doesn't leave a mark either. Okay, walk away.
I didn't get to talk, so I'll talk.
Okay, what you got?
I pray out loud.
Okay.
So that my kids can hear me. I even ask God for forgiveness for the sin that I have, if I am sinning against my kids, so that they're hearing me, go to God with it, and then I go to them with it. But I also have started singing and worshiping God.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just straight up, as loud as I can, I am singing a worship song, and they're just like, I'm like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Playing the singing is good.
Yeah. As long as I'm singing, you're breathing, so we're good.
And if I'm worshiping God, murder's not in it. So
Yeah. Okay. I like it. What'd you guys come up with?
We also said walk away, switch parents if something needs to be done.
Yeah.
We've just got young ones to reference for this.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. As she gets older, yeah, switching parents definitely So yeah, if one parent can't emotionally handle it, switch off. And we did that a lot when the kids were growing up. Sometimes Melissa would be so upset that I would go in and deal with it, or I would be so upset and Melissa would go in and deal with it because she would be calmer and wasn't directly involved. So switching up the parent. And also throws the kids off a little bit too. So if mom's the one that does all the discipline and then here comes dad, it's like, okay, I'm dead. And or vice versa, so depending on how it was. So Ephesians 4:26 and 27 says, "Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and do what?" What does verse 27 say? Anybody know? So don't let the sun go down on your anger and give the devil a foothold. So that's the key with anger. That's what you got to be careful of. Because when you are angry at that kid, and I told you guys early on, I always know when I'm angry when my toes start curling. When my toes and my shoes start curling, yeah, I've learned to shut my mouth. Because the very next thing out of my mouth is going to be something stupid that I can't take back. So you learn that, you learn those cues, because if you let it fester, if you let it take over, if you let that anger grow in you, you're giving the devil a foothold, and the result of your anger is never uplifting. You may feel better, biting the kid's head off may make you feel better until you look into their eyes and they're bawling because they haven't been disciplined, they've been beat up on. And there is a difference. The result of discipline should produce a godly, mature individual. Having a kid that's beat up on suppresses and squelches their personality and changes who they are. So you don't want to go down that route because you will end up with a damaged child.
We've got the more conviction you have in your heart, the more guilt you feel after those situations too. I've learned that.
Oh yeah. And that's the last thing you want to feel when you discipline a kid. Yeah. You don't want to lay in bed regretting what you said. So that's why you don't discipline out of anger, because when you discipline out of justice, out of what should be done, then you can sleep peacefully, knowing that all of the words that came out of your mouth were loving and corrective. Now, is there a time when you should be stern and forceful in your discipline? Absolutely. Again, this is not gentle parenting. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about not doing it out of anger. Think about Jesus when he flipped the tables over in the temple. That was very forceful. That was very stern. That was very, you have committed a serious wrong, and we're going to fix it. There is always a place for that in parenting. The difference was, he was not angry like we would be. Our anger tends to be, I want that person to burn in hell. I hate that person so much that I want them to be punished physically. I want pain upon their life. Yeah. Disappointment, correction, there was sin, and he was executing God's righteous judgment on the sin of the people. So that was the difference. It wasn't, I want to inflict pain so that I feel justified, so I feel better. That's where our anger differs from righteous anger. But now the other verse, James 1:19 and 20, know this, beloved brethren, let every person be quick to, slow to, and slow to anger. So be quick to listen. I wish I would have learned this lesson whenever my kids were younger, But one of the things that I've learned over the last 5 years is instead of immediately jumping in and chewing a kid out or giving discipline to the kid, in some situations, again, some situations, swift discipline is appropriate. In other situations, if it's not appropriate to swiftly discipline, or you're unsure of what exactly happened. You know the flower pot got broken. You have 4 kids. Which of your 4 kids did it? Now, you could be like my dad, and his parents, what they did is they just lined all 4 boys up and gave them all spankings because they figured one of them did it, and the other 3 of you did something else we didn't know about, so we'll just spank all 4 of you and take care of it all.
One did it, 3 was solution.
Yeah, or maybe you did something yesterday that we didn't catch you, so we're gonna punish you today, but you don't have any idea who did it. So that's where being quick to listen to them, hear what they're saying. Sometimes talking to them separately instead of lining all 4 of them up. Okay, which one of you did it? Because you know very well that all of them are going to be like, the youngest is not going to say anything because they're looking over at the oldest who's going to thump them if they say anything. The poor middle kid doesn't have a clue what's going on. He's just sitting there going, huh, something got broken? And so, it's you could separate them out and listen to what they have to say. Then once you have collected the evidence and figure out who did it, then you do the punishment. Whether it is a spanking, because you have told them multiple times not to do this particular thing and they keep doing it. So maybe it justifies a spanking, maybe it's grounding, whatever the punishment is. But that's being quick to listen and not quick to react. Sometimes we're quick to react and we punish the wrong kid. Because we've assumed that, this kid's always done. It's always the youngest kid that breaks everything. So we punish the youngest kid, even when we don't know who did it. And it turns out it's the middle kid that everybody forgets about. Now, use your actions instead of anger. So your children will obey when they know you're serious. How many of you don't, if you do this, I'm not calling you out, but how many of you have heard a parent say, I want you in your seat. I'm going to give you to the count of 5 to get into your seat. You know what that does? What does that do? By telling a kid, I'm going to give you to the count of 5 to get into your seat, what is that doing to that kid? Right. They don't have to obey immediately. And what do they get to do for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? What did they get to do for that 5 count? Whatever they want. They get to disobey. They get to rebel for the count of 5. Because they know you are not serious until you get to 5. I love, what did you say? Yes. So delayed obedience is disobedience. Get in that chair. That should be it. Because you're serious. If a kid doesn't think you're serious, they're going to look at you and go, what is it that Joshua said at family reunion that you were so mad about? About obeying his teachers?
Oh, that Joshua. Not
Yes.
Kayla's Joshua.
No, not Kayla's Joshua. Come on. I can't remember the exact verbiage.
He wasn't doing what his teacher said. And
Speak up a little bit.
He wasn't doing what the teacher had asked him. And he said, well, she didn't make me. I'm sorry. She shouldn't have to make you. She asked you, you should do that. And he's like, no, that's not how it works. This is why we have such a hard time with kids these days. Because he truly felt like, well, she's not going to make me do it. Then she didn't really mean for me. So as soon as the teacher turned around, he just went back to doing what he was doing. So, yeah.
Uh-huh. But it's all about this. Dad's serious. Mom is serious. They should obey the first time. No counting. No, don't do any of that. That just gives them time to disobey. That trains them that they only have to obey when you get mad.
Well, and I've learned too, training myself not to repeat it second and third time. No, mom or dad said it the first time. We need to be doing it.
Right. Yeah.
Because you can easily second, third, fourth.
Well, and they're
It's kind of the same thing as the 5 seconds because you keep repeating it.
Right.
well, we fall into this manipulation that kids convince their parents that I didn't hear you, I didn't understand, and either one of those is almost never true. They just know that if they keep saying that or say, huh, or what'd you say, or then that gets them out of being obedient. So,
Now, another thing is your emotional level. You have to remember you're the adult. If you have elementary age children, they don't have a clue. They're just learning, they're stretching, they're trying to figure out what's going on. You're the adult. You are their God-given guide to life. And sometimes the guide has to smack the butt of the follower because they want to jump into a bed of poison ivy. And you know very well that if you jump into a bed of poison ivy, it's going to be a miserable several days afterwards. So you smack them, their butt, to get them out of that bed of poison ivy. Now, when they get older, to teenagers, like middle school age, middle school kids are losing about 1,000 neurons a day. Almost. I mean, their brains are shedding neurons like crazy that they're not using and reorganizing and trying to go from a prepubescent brain to a adult brain. So their brains are being reorganized. That's why middle school kids are goofy and forgetful. That's why you tell them something and, oh, yeah, I'll do it. And then, why didn't you clean your room? Oh, yeah. And it may legitimately be a physiological problem that their brain is being reorganized and they intended to do it, but as they were going to the room, they're like, oh, a butterfly. Wow. Yeah. And they just legitimately lost track. So it's up to you as the parent to be quick to listen and use discernment. Was this a goofy middle school forgetfulness, or was this legitimate rebellion? If it's legitimate rebellion, then you discipline it, but you have to watch your emotions. Because if you start disciplining your middle schooler or even your high schooler, what's going to happen to their emotions? They're going to start getting angry, right? So their emotions start going up. Guess what happens if you respond and you go up? What are they going to do? Go up higher. And then you go up higher, and the next thing you know, you guys are throwing silverware at each other. Not pretty. Well, I mean, we had fun raising our kids. So she did break a spoon.
And you bring up a good point because my lessons learned is when you're of similar personalities, that can happen very fast.
Oh, yeah. That, with the two of us, when Kayla needs to do something, she responds a lot better if I tell her than if Melissa tells her. Because the two of them, their personalities kind of clash a little bit, and she takes it very differently if I tell her, hey, make sure you pick up your stuff. I mean, the other day I brought a thing of laundry out, and I set it on the table. I'm like, you need to fold that laundry. She said, okay. And I said, oh, no. Go fold your laundry. My 24-year-old daughter, go fold your laundry.
your married 24-year-old daughter.
And she's like, okay. But if
I
Melissa...
would have said that in the nicest possible way. She would have rolled her eyes and been like, whatever, I'll get to it.
So, it just, so sometimes sometimes that does help. But keeping your emotions, so if their emotions go up, yours stay right here. If their emotions continue to go up, yours stay here. Because or down.
We talk about in school about de-escalating a situation. Sometimes with your kids, you have to, not only do you have to stay, but you have to find a way to get them down. So it might not be the appropriate time to be disciplining them if they are just really high. We need to say, we all need a break. We'll talk about this later, whatever. And each of your kids might be different, but getting them to be calm, because if they're really high emotionally, they are not going to accept discipline or instruction.
Yeah, because remember, in 1 Corinthians 11:1, we are to be imitators of God. And that includes in parenting. We, again, are our kids' guides through life. And if we want to raise spiritual champions, it starts with us. It starts with our relationship with Christ and being imitators of God to our children. So that's the key. So Melissa, how about you tell us how to respond?
So we need to first understand the reason behind our kids' misbehavior. So 3 things that typically are why they're misbehaving. They are either attention seeking. So the child is trying to gain your focus or somebody else's focus or whatever. Like if you've, been in a store and a kid is throwing a fit, they're doing that to get attention. Not necessarily from you, but from like everyone else. It's like a lot of kids will think, if I make a scene, mom won't discipline me because she'll be embarrassed. So we need to, you would discipline that differently than you would, if they're being defiant in another way. If our kids were throwing a fit, Kayla loves to tell people that she was laying on the ground crying and carrying on, and I just stepped over and kept walking. Like, I'm not giving attention to that because that's what she wanted. Or sending them to their room, like if she's attention getting, you're just going to go to your room because we're not going to honor that by giving attention to it. That's not how we get the attention that we need. We get it in a more productive way. So if it's attention getting, then we're taking away the attention. If there is a power struggle and the child is attempting to assert control or independence, then that looks a little different than attention getting. That was a struggle that Kayla and I had. It was very much a power thing. Like, I am not doing that simply because you told me to. That one has to be addressed by dealing with what the power struggle is. Like, we had to have conversations about why are we even having a power struggle? What does the Bible say about our role as parent and child? And why am I telling you these things? And so the conversations look a little different than they do if we're attention seeking. Or the third one, if it's revenge, is the child responding to hurt or injustice with defiance. Sometimes a kid, you tell them to do something and they just feel like it's just not fair. And then they just lose it, right? That's a conversation that we need to have with them once they calm down. Why did you feel that way? Why did you feel like that was unfair? What was unfair about it? If they're getting to that point, then they're getting to the point where we can kind of have some conversations about why did that make you feel that way? What can we do about that? What's the best way to approach that? If you felt like it was unfair that I disciplined you and, Alex was the one who did it, how could we have handled that better? What would have been a better way to have brought that up with me? We had lots of conversations with our kids I know you felt you were mistreated, but throwing a fit or being mad isn't how we handle that. What's the better way to do that? Maybe just have had a conversation, just said, hey mom, can I stay up for a few more minutes? Or if I would say it's time for bed and like, hey, I got this level I'm playing, can I just have 5 more minutes and finish? There are ways you can appeal to your parents in a respectful way other than throwing a fit. So kind of deciding which one of those it is behind their behavior. Also, identifying the root of the misbehavior and asking, what is behind my child's behavior? Like, why are they doing this? Are they, is there some kind of skill they're missing? Like, are they trying to communicate something and they're just doing a really bad job and so they just throw a fit? I mean, if you think about it, when babies come out, all they know how to do is scream and cry. So if they're hungry, they cry. If their diapers are wet, they cry. If they're hurt, they cry. Like, all they know how to do is cry. So if we don't teach them how to do something different, that's all they do is they just continue to cry and throw a fit. And I would like to cry and throw a fit sometimes too, and I'm displeased with what's going on, but that's not what we do when we grow up. But you have to teach them. So what do you do when you feel bad? What do we do when we don't get what we want? What do we do when things don't go our way? And if you don't teach them how to do that, then they don't just naturally come by it. So we need to ask ourselves, why is my child behaving this way? What are they reacting to? Look for patterns in their emotional needs or their developmental gaps. Is there something we need to teach them? Sometimes as they start getting older, well, not sometimes, as they start getting older, they start wanting more independence. And you have to kind of start this process of allowing them to have some independence in things. But it has to be kind of balanced with what's appropriate for their age and what they can handle. So sometimes the fight is because you're not letting them have enough control. But if you give them too much control, that can cause them to be kind of out of whack too, because they can't handle that. People who are like, well, I'm just going to let my kids decide whatever they want. Your kid can't handle that. That's too much responsibility for them. I used to tell my kids when they were little, like, would get these colored plates, and I want the red one. No, you don't get the red one. You get whichever one I put in front of you until you're okay with whichever one I got in front of you. But if you can't handle being okay with getting the yellow one when you wanted the red one, then you don't get to choose. Because part of having that independent ability of choosing is that I'm okay with not getting what I wanted.
What was that, Brian? You were telling me.
You get what you get and you don't throw a fit. Yeah, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. Don't just correct, instruct, and equip them. So you can go back to our 8 modules of wisdom and the 7 cornerstones and think about, what are they missing? We talk about in school, like we have some kind of missing skills. We talk about a kid who's disruptive. What missing skills do they have? And it's the same with your kid. You know, they don't know how to do things. We have to teach them how to do things. So if they're not behaving correctly, what kind of instruction do they need? What do I need to equip them with so that when this situation happens again, if it's bedtime or bath time or dinner time, like those happen every day. If they're having a fit about bedtime, chances are they're going to tomorrow night too, unless you figure out why are they having this and what instruction do they need in order to equip them to make better decisions. Respond with discernment. We want to discipline defiance and not immaturity or typical childness. Like sometimes little kids just do things that are just little kid things. They're not trying to be defiant. They just don't know better, and they just misbehave. Now, if it's a dangerous thing, like we don't want them running into the street, then we discipline that because we need you to not do that. But if they're just horsing around and they break something, that doesn't mean they need to be yelled at and maybe not spanked. There maybe needs to be a consequence. I know, you were just fooling around. You didn't really think that through, as children do. They don't think about, if I'm rolling around, that I might bump into this table and knock over this vase and break it. Like, they don't think that. But then there needs to be some kind of consequence where, well, now you're going to have to do some chores because you're going to have to pay for the thing that you broke, something like that. But they don't need the same kind of discipline as if you say to them, you know, give them explicit instruction, like go and clean your room, and then they go around the corner and call you a bad name and then don't do it. Like that's entirely different. So understanding your kid's attitude and where they are is really important. When Kayla she was talking, but she didn't know, I don't know, I can't remember how old she was. Maybe 6 or 7, I don't know. She was mad at me, and she went off walking down the hall saying some things, and my parents were over, and my dad looked at me and he said, you know, she just walked down the hall swearing at you. I said, she didn't swear. And he said, well, she doesn't know any words, but that attitude, she was just swearing at you. I said, oh, well, okay, I think I need to go take care of that. Like, we have to watch their attitude. What is it they're doing? What's really going on there? Is it defiance or is it just immaturity? If you discipline their immaturity, then that really kind of crushes them, because that makes them feel like it's unfair. Like, I didn't know I was going to break the vase. But what we're going to learn in our consequences is that we have to think about our surroundings, and we have to think about that kind of stuff. So avoid overcorrecting behaviors that stem from age-appropriate development. So that's just if we just harp on something over and over again, that just kind of breaks them too. if they are continuing to do the same thing over and over and over again, then you are not teaching them something that they need. We should see some kind of progress. That doesn't mean that they're going to be perfect after you teach them something, but we should see, like what we talked about at the beginning, we should see some growth and some change, or some like acknowledgement that, oh, I know, I should have done this and I didn't. You know, there needs to be some kind of level of growth there. One of the things he said, I think in the book out of here, I thought was a really good quote, that because I love you, I must teach you to obey. It's very important that we convey to our kids, it is because I love you that I discipline you and that I want you to learn how to obey. It isn't because you annoy me. It isn't because I hate you. It is because I love you that I make you obey. If I didn't love you, I wouldn't discipline you. I just wouldn't care. I wouldn't care how you turned out or if things went well or went bad. So just being able to verbalize that and communicate that to your kid, that your discipline is out of your love for them and your desire for them to learn to obey and learn to follow God. It's really important. Okay.
And so how many of you have 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old boys? Anybody have? So, oh yeah. Because this is where I think one of the hardest things to discipline is 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old boys have the tendency that everything's a sword and everything needs to be flung and twisted and twirled around. And maybe you're seeing that from yours too? Yeah. It's a boy thing. I mean, it's this idea that it's either a sword or a sling or you know, they're going to become some champion bullwhipper or whatever. And it's not that, you know, you could tell them multiple times, don't fling that X thing around. Okay. And literally, and again, this is where your discernment comes in, because I mean, if they're being defiant, that's one thing, but 9 times out of 10, they're probably not even thinking about it. They're probably just standing there twirling that stick around again, and you're like, I just told you to stop. Oh. And not even realizing that their hand is spinning the stick around. Because again, remember that when boys hit that puberty age, their brain really starts to reorganize, and sometimes they do lose connectivity. So that's where that discernment comes in. Is this immaturity or is this defiance? Because if it's defiance, that's a different discipline issue. Siri wanted me to know what defiance was. Okay, stop. So is it defiance or immaturity? Because if it's immaturity, that's something very different. That's a different discipline than defiance is.
Have you already taught to distinguish between defiance and immaturity?
No, not really. Yeah, not really. So defiance is going to be more of the attitude of, you told me not to do this, I'm going to do it anyway. And I mean, you can see it in their eyes. And a lot of times a defiant kid, when they do what's defiant and they see you, they will look right at you. Yeah. It's a challenge. I mean, that's what defiance is. It is a direct challenge to your authority.
And you say, don't touch that, and they go.
Yes. Yeah. So that's what defiance is. Defiance is challenging your authority because they're doing exactly what we do when we sin. When we sin, we say, I know better than God. So I'm going to do what makes me happy because God can't. I mean, that's effectively what we're saying when we sin. And that's what your kid is saying when they're defiant, is they're saying, I know better than you do as a parent. You told me not to swing the stick around, but I'm not going to break anything. I'm going to swing it anyway. Whereas immaturity is they're just not even thinking about it. They just pick up a stick and start twirling it around, and they're walking and twirling, and you say, you're like, Noah, huh? And they get that deer in the headlights, like, what? I told you not to do that. Oh. And you could just tell by their reaction that it's It's a mind-body almost disconnect with the immaturity as compared to a direct challenge to your authority.
Now, you can see that in little kids too. Like your 1, 2-year-old, like they know what you're saying, even if they don't talk back. And you can tell if they're being defiant or if they're just being curious. When like if you say don't touch that and they, they're watching you and they're doing it. You're like, leave that alone. You can't just move everything in your house away from your little kids. You have to teach them what they're allowed to touch, what they're not allowed to touch. Because when you take them places, you need to be able to tell them, don't do that, and they need to learn to listen to you. So they have to be disciplined when they're little, too, for being defiant. It's not like that defiance starts when they're, 6, 7, or 8, but it starts when they're very little.
So, as far as what discipline looks like, and I'm going to kind of go quickly through this because we do want to have some question and answer time. I know some of you may still have some lingering questions from all the stuff we've talked about, but when we talk about like an 18 months to 7-year-old, that elementary, that pre-K to elementary school, this is definitely the spanking and redirecting. And I know some people are like, we don't want to spank our kids. There's something very effective about a swat on the butt that is an attitude adjustment. It's, and we're not talking, don't beat the junk out of the kids so they get whiplash because you hit them so hard. It is a controlled swat on the butt. Just enough to kind of jar them. It's like a dog. I'm just going to say, it's very much like a dog. A dog gets fixated. If you ever walk a dog and they get fixated on a squirrel or another dog, and you see them and you just kind of tap them with your foot and they're like, okay. And then they go back to, that's what a swat does for a kid. Is it snaps them out of that rebellious, I forgot the word, defiant. Rebellious, defiant behavior and kind of, what? And allows them to redirect. Now, of course, they're going to cry, they're going to scream, and but the purpose is to say, this is a serious offense. This is something serious that we need to redirect you back to the correct path. And in reality, if you are serious in your discipline, you should not have to spank very often. I think we spanked our kids less than 10 times their entire life. I don't think it was very many. Yeah, per kid.
How many do you remember, Jonathan?
Okay, maybe 20. It wasn't very many.
You went to work.
Oh, okay. Okay, I guess.
I remember our wooden spoon I threw away.
Oh, that's true. The wooden spoon. Okay.
I have a question on spanking.
Uh-huh.
So you said it's to knock them out of a rebellious state. Does that mean if any time passes between the rebelling and not rebelling, like, I can't think of an example right now. Maybe you're at a grocery store or something and they're doing something and then they stop and you get home. Like, you're not spanking them when you get home. It would have been, the opportunity was in the store.
Yeah. A kid that young, discipline needs to be quick and immediate. Yeah, if they act up in the store and you say, you're gonna get a spanking when you get home. By the time they get home, they've moved on. And they're like, why am I getting this? What? Because their emotional state, their mind and their thoughts have already progressed well past that. They're thinking they want a Kool-Aid pouch.
So it's a tool to get them out of defiance to talk to them.
Yeah.
A punishment in and of itself.
Or to show the severity of the offense. For example, you have a child that, one that I got spanked for when I was a kid. I called my mom a really not good word. I basically said my mom had no father. And there's a single word for that. You guys probably can figure it out. My dad, almost immediately, rendered justice. And I learned very quickly that mom is very precious to my dad. and that if I do anything to offend mom, there was very quick justice for that and a very high price to pay. Whereas, a kid in a grocery store who's acting up, that, and it kind of depends on your comfort level. I mean, if you think you can give them a quick swat on the butt in the grocery store without CPS being called on you, then I would go for it. But otherwise, there are other punishments that you can give them. It's like, you're gonna sit in this cart and you're gonna scream and yell, and I'm gonna do my shopping, and everybody in the grocery store is gonna look at us. Everybody's gonna watch us. You can scream all you want. You are not getting what you want. And then and that is a punishment in and of itself, because they are just going emotionally crazy. Your emotional level is down, which is really hard when a kid's screaming in the grocery store, because you just want to bolt. But you're like, no, mom or dad, we have to get the grocery shopping done, no matter what you're doing. Then when we get in the car, you are going home and you're going straight to bed. Or you're going to lose whatever extra privilege we were going to do in the afternoon. It's gone. Again, that is up to you as a parent to determine that level of discipline. Does that make sense? Yeah, the grocery store one's hard, because kids know that if they throw a fit in the grocery store, that is, for a lot of parents, that's almost a guarantee given. And it shouldn't be. Most people who have kids, when a kid is screaming and yelling in the grocery store, we're all walking by going, get him, get that kid. We're not walking by going, oh my gosh, why can't you get that kid under control? We've all been there with a 2 or 3 year old that's screaming. And
Service will hold your cart as well. And as you take your kids out to the car, you feel more comfortable disciplining them at home. They're more than happy to hold that cart.
yeah.
I'll be right back. I need to go deal with something. And they say, we're happy to keep it.
And then, go out, take care of business, bring them back in. But the lesson you're trying to teach them is they are a part of the family. The family is grocery shopping. Your fit is not changing what the family is doing. Because if you teach them their fit changes what the family is doing, what are they going to do next? Yeah, that's giving them control, and you have to teach them from an early age, mom and dad are the head of the household. You are a child. You will grow up and you will leave us. We will still be here. We are the head. We are controlling this family. That's what you have to teach them. Tony?
I was just going to add, unless you come into contact with the elderly grandparents at Costco, and they're like, we just missed this.
Yeah.
Oh, when you were around. We had 2 or I can't remember how many kids they said. You guys are just doing great as we're disciplining one of the boys.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, and that's, I think, what we forget is that most people who have kids know exactly what we're going through, and they're not looking at us. Now, the young marrieds who are like in their 20s are walking by, and they're probably looking at you like, can't you shut that kid up? And you just need to look at them and say, you just wait. This is what's going to happen to you. Did you, Daryl?
I was reading something last week, and I really had to process it, because at first I rejected it. But the overall premise is, think about the spiritual implications of how you're disciplining. Mm-hmm. And the thing they talked about was timeouts.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about how ludicrous timeouts are. Because timeouts and several other forms of punishments are, you sit there and think about what you've done. And the spiritual implication is, you need to sit in your shame. Mm-hmm. And then as adults, what do we do when we sin?
We pout.
We sit in our shame. Mm-hmm. And we go through, how did we learn that? Mm-hmm. We were taught through discipline.
Yeah. Yeah.
So rather than sitting in shame, swift justice. Mm-hmm. And then it's done. Let's move on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like that you are teaching them through your discipline how God interacts with us. Which is why you don't discipline out of anger. Because God doesn't discipline out of anger, God disciplines out of justice. And we should discipline out of justice as well, so that we're setting that mark. Now, when the kids hit elementary school, hopefully by the time they're second, third, fourth grade, spankings, you've already taken care of that. And again, not to say they may get a quick swat on the butt every now and again, but hopefully by this point, you're on a good path. And in this case, in elementary school, should be quick and short and not vindictive. We never grounded our kids for more than like a day or two. That was it. They might think it was longer, but yeah. Well, yeah, because you got to keep track of that grounding. Yeah. Well, and the
Grounding doesn't encourage them to change their behavior. Like, you lost your Xbox for the next month. And what are they supposed to do? And what's going to keep them from misbehaving next week or in 2 weeks? And
What's
it's
the
also too long. Like, their brain can't think that far when they're that age.
if you can't ground, if you can't do timeouts, if you what
So that's why we did token systems and charts. So that instead of all together grounding you, because you have to remember discipline is a positive and a negative. So instead of grounding you from your Xbox, it was if you do your chores, you get 10 minutes on your Xbox. Don't you remember the circle? And so if you do this, then you get a positive. If you do this, you get a negative. So there was always a way to redeem yourself. If you ground a kid for a week from their Xbox, they have a week and there's no redemption. There's no way for them to recover. There's no positive in that.
When you were that age, we had these little, you remember, clips, like laundry clips that moved like up and down, had your name on it. If you misbehaved, it'd go down. If you did good things, it would go up.
And then you guys would come and move the laundry clips when we weren't looking.
So if you had the ability to see how it's going,
Yeah, we knew.
also, I would often ground you to me. Like, if you got in trouble, like, you'd spend the rest of the day not more than a foot from me, and whatever I did, you did.
Yeah, that was awful.
Do it. Or you had to do chores until you were happy about it. Until you could happily say, yes, Mom, I'd be happy to do that. And if you didn't, then we would do another one. So something that's very immediate, very quick, and they had a way,
They had a way to get out.
yeah, to earn their way out,
Yeah.
not just.
So I was grounded my entire, I think, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter of my 8th grade year, and first quarter, second quarter of my freshman year. And it was every time grade cards came out, I was grounded. Every time grade cards came out, there was no escape. The only thing I can do is go to church, which was probably a saving grace. But that was it. That was the only activity I was allowed to do. Well, there was no escape, so I just gave up. You know, after a while, you're just like, I can't get out. And that's the way your kid feels when they're grounded for a long time, is they just give up. What's the point? And then they do something else that's bad, and you extend the grounding. And they do something else that's bad, and they extend the grounding. So
You have to be creative. It's different with every kid. And finding something that kind of fits what it was that they did wrong. I mean, Kayla, one time we grounded her actually from her room. She wasn't allowed to go to her room. Because she would just go to her room and have a bad attitude and make it worse, right? So we're like, you're not allowed to do that. You have to stay out in the living room until it's time for bed, and then you can go to bed.
And we took all the mirrors out of all the kids' rooms because they would get mad. And then they would go in their rooms and they would sit in front of the mirror and they would cry and they'd look at themselves crying and they would start crying worse. And so we just took all the mirrors out.
I remember Jonathan doing that.
Yeah, I think it was Kayla mainly. But
My stepmom would call us out of our rooms spend all their time. That's not a punishment.
Yeah.
That's where they prefer to be, is in their room.
Yeah, it's better to ground them to our room, to the parents' room. There's nothing to do in there. Now, when they hit teenagers, natural consequences are going to be more powerful. As a teenager, oh, you forgot your lunch money for school? I'm sorry, I can't bring your lunch money up to school. You're just going to have to go without lunch today. Is the kid going to die going out without lunch? No.
This one's probably harder
Yeah.
for mom. Yeah, it's
Right.
also probably harder for parents to let your kids suffer a natural consequence. We want to fix it for them, or be like, oh, that just seems really harsh, or they'll miss food, or whatever. It's better for them at that age to have some sort of, as far as your life goes, it's not that big of a consequence, and for them to learn from it. If they forgot their homework, or they failed a test, or they, whatever, there has to be consequences. Not everything has an immediate natural consequence. Sometimes we had to kind of invent something as your natural consequence that was similar to the behavior, because maybe the consequence wouldn't happen until so much later that they wouldn't, relate it to what happened. So you do have to be very creative when you're disciplining your kids. Yep.
So how do you go about handling girls' big emotions when they start getting
The hormones hit and they go, woo!
have the big emotion comes out of nowhere, walking to our room, saying things as we're going to our room, and
Yeah. Yeah. Kayla would be like, Kayla can go from being perfectly pleasant to ridiculous in seriously like 5 seconds. I'm like, I swear, Chris would be like, what did you do to her? I'm like, I swear I didn't do anything. It was a lot of emotions. That was probably the age.
the boundary of like, it's okay to have emotions.
It is, but they have to learn how to control them. Mm-hmm.
And you can't act out of anger.
Yeah. Kayla had some serious meltdowns a few times where like I was laughing hysterically because she was just ridiculous, which just made her worse. I'm like, I can't stop. Like, where is Chris? I can't stop laughing. But
not the best discipline
not the
strategy,
best discipline
laughing at your kid
strategy,
when they're melting down to say.
But once they calm down, it's really important to have a conversation with them. Once they've calmed down about what were you feeling, and helping them process through what was I feeling, why was I feeling it, what triggered it, what can I do when I start to feel that way again to stop myself from being here? Because you can discipline them, but you aren't going to be able to always be there to discipline that. They have to learn how to regulate that themselves, especially when they start getting into puberty, and there's a lot of drama with girls. And that was the age where Kayla ended up getting grounded from her room, because she'd just go to her room with an attitude and it would just get worse, So she seemed to do better when she was with us, because I could notice things and say, hey, where is this going to lead? Where is that train of thought going to get you? And to help her to start to recognize in herself where she was leading herself and how to kind of regulate herself. Yeah.
I have no idea. We'll find out in like 10, 15 years if I've emotionally damaged my child. But she was absolutely. But I was in one of those moments where I'm like, I don't even know what to do. So I just started recording her, and that pissed her off more. But then when
I
she
did
was
that
out of the moment,
Let me share.
when she was out of the moment, we went back and watched it. I'm like, talk to me about this. And she was like, I didn't do that. And I was like, honey, yes, you did.
Yeah.
I'm not like this. What happened?
We
And then she was like, okay, I do this. It's very curious. I was like, okay, but listen, I'm 40 years old, and sometimes I don't recognize that. So, I get it, but, we can't do this. So, it probably will land her in therapy,
Yeah.
but I didn't know what else to do. And
Kayla, we would tell her there were two of her.
Yeah.
And we I need you to find the other Kayla, because this one's not okay. Yeah. She'll tell you about that now. Yeah. They just need to know that. They need to recognize that.
And having those conversations when they're calm is very important. And then helping them develop that strategy that when you recognize them starting to go up, that before they get too out of control, you can say, remember, or where's this going to lead, or, something very calm, loving, that can snap them, kind of like the little swat on the butt that snaps a kid out of their state. Sometimes a few words that you have already talked about and already developed a strategy can snap them back and go, oh. But it does take time for kids, especially because when a kid goes through puberty, part of the reason they have those big emotions, what we would think is big emotions, is they are feeling the exact same emotions that you feel today. They are feeling them at 12.
And they don't know what to do.
And they have no idea. So there's no difference between kid emotions and adult emotions. The difference is they're feeling them for the first time, and they have no mechanism to deal with that. So that's why they go out of control.
Way far away from puberty. Backing it up. But you were talking about like all they know how to do is cry, and so like at first, like, obviously.
By the way, it is 8 o'clock, so if you need to go get kids. Okay.
And you have to teach them what
Yeah.
other things to do.
Yeah.
Which also obviously, like when and how. Am I like beating a dead horse trying to do that with 12?
No. No,
She only knows 4 words.
we actually taught our kids sign language when they were that age,
Yeah,
because I wanted them to communicate, not scream.
The next one.
Huh?
I didn't do that with Sailor, and I wish I did.
Do you wish that you did?
I wish I did do it.
Well,
yeah.
do it. She's only a year old.
Too late?
No, she won't start talking until she's 2. Full sentences. My kids were, yeah. They have signs that they learned. Alex, actually, because he had some other things going on, his food allergies, he had a picture wall. So when he wanted something, he would go to the wall and touch the picture. So teaching them to communicate in a more productive way is what you want to do, right? I want you to communicate with me your needs in a way other than screaming at me or hitting me.
Just take repetition until
Yes.
you want to cry. Okay.
Yes. And if it's not, if they're not picking up on it, then try something else. But like sign language just didn't work for Alex, so the pictures worked great. And I actually took a camera and went around, took pictures of his favorite things and food and stuck them on the wall. And he very quickly was like, oh yeah, I want that, Whereas Kayla picked up the sign language really quickly.
And the sign language, like when they're hungry and you're feeding them, you give them food and then you give them the sign that you want them to say for food. So that way they start to associate, oh, when I do this, that means more or
We
whatever.
taught them more and please and thank you. Like our kids were please and thank you when they were, 18 months old, because I'm like, well, you can have manners when you're this age if I can teach you the word for it. So, and Kayla started talking when she was 2. She was saying lots and lots of words. So they didn't do it for very long, but so she didn't learn a whole lot of words, but it was very, very different. And table manners for a little kid is important too. They don't throw food on the floor. We don't make a mess. We don't do that, or you lose your food. They can learn that. They know. They're smart enough to know that. It just takes some.
That was Theo. Theo would throw food on the ground, and it looked like defiance until he learned all done.
Yeah.
Let me stop throwing food on the ground.
He was just trying to communicate.
Yeah. He was just trying to communicate, I'm done.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, last thing, raising children doesn't stop whenever they're adults. So you change from, you obviously, I can't spank Jonathan and Alex. That's long gone. But, yeah, head smack occasionally, yes, but when they become adults, then it's a lot of conversations. It's a lot of conversations and a lot of prayer. But your journey as a parent does not stop until you go to heaven. That's when your job as a parent stops. So you could be 70 and they're 50, you're still parenting them.
I was just going to clarify. Yes, parent, but it's more from like a mentorship.
Right.
position.
Yeah. It changes to that.
What to do.
I asked Alex earlier what he did wrong today because he grounded himself to my office. He came and sat right next to me in my office all day.
I just got bored and I didn't want to stay in my office.
So,
You realize I'm not paying you for
yeah. So before you guys go, no midweek next week. So there's nothing going on next week. The new groups are in Church Center. So Daniel's class is called The Doctrine of Vocation, how your job can be actually a calling from God and how you can use your job to minister to other people. And Christian's class is The Storms of Life, Finding Peace in the Midst of Life's Struggles. So how to find peace when everything's falling apart. So both of those are active in Church Center if you guys want to go sign up to those. We will know the first week, which will be August 13th, as far as which one will be on this floor and which one will be down in the underground. So we'll let you guys know maybe that day or a little bit before. But otherwise, see you guys in a couple weeks. See you guys.
Or Sunday.
Yeah, or Sunday. But I mean, as far as midweek, we'll see you in a couple weeks.